Welcome to Bee's Table Talk, the new St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce podcast. I am Bee Kyle, your host, president and CEO of our chamber, and we are hosted by Ian Levitt in their amazing Studio Americana. We're very excited to bring this programming to you. Throughout the year, we meet fascinating, accomplished people, always willing to talk with us, but not necessarily available to fit into our event schedule. So this podcast is our attempt to capture these conversations and share them with our membership and the broader employer community, and through a medium that fits our increasingly mobile lifestyles. Today, we are featuring three lovely guests. To my left here in the studio is Julie Kimble, founder and president of Kimble Co., a full-service WBE certified real estate services firm in the Twin Cities. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Bee.
And also we have Jill and Max Lipset, owners of the Powerhouse Gym in Highland Park, with locations in St. Louis Park, and Woodbury's grand opening is next week. So welcome, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our topic today is entrepreneurs, and we have the amazing opportunity of looking at our 1,200 and some members, and so many of you are entrepreneurs who are brave innovators, trying new things and branching out on your own. So this is an exciting opportunity for us to celebrate you. So feel free to interview one another, and I can just sit back and listen. But why don't we first start with Jill and Max to tell us how long you've had your gym and how you got here.
Well, we started our own business about 8 years ago, and we were doing corporate wellness, team training, working with youth sports teams, and then renting space out of other gyms for personal training use. Also did a little work in our garage as well at the time. And then about 2 years later, so 2013, we opened our first location in Highland Park. And so that's been now 6 years.
Are both of you fitness? What got you into the fitness world?
Well, I grew up playing soccer and a lot of other sports here locally in the Twin Cities, and then played college soccer and got to play a few years after college, traveling around and doing some professional soccer around the U.S. and in South America a little bit. So I was always big into fitness and really discovered that I had a passion for working with all types of people on their fitness journey, regardless of whether they were a high-level athlete or somebody who was just getting started, and just really discovered that passion for working with people of all ages and abilities. And I was pre-med as an undergrad, so kind of saw the continuation of some of my undergraduate studies and decided to go a different direction with it as opposed to going back to medical school. And my wife and I decided to give this a go and see what happened. And then, here we are 8 years later and haven't really looked back. So
that is fabulous. That's very brave. Yes, honey, I want to open a gym. Yeah. You want to do what? You want to open a gym. So where'd you go to college?
I went to Claremont McKenna College in Los Angeles.
Marvelous. My son was a college soccer player. I was hoping maybe you would have played against him. You're probably a little older than he is.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Tony Sane from the Sane Foundation?
Yep, definitely. So I grew up with a lot of Tony, and his peers were my coaches growing up. So Tony Sane, Amos McGee, Manny Lagos, who's the director of Minnesota United, or the sporting director, I think is his title. Those guys ended up being a lot of the individuals who influenced me as coaches growing up, and also Buzz Lagos as well is a big influence for me, and he's somebody who I've actually had the chance to coach with over the past several years through my high school coaching. So I still coach high school soccer at St. Paul Academy.
Nice.
And it's been kind of a full circle thing. Buzz and I have been coaching together the last 4 years.
I'm sure you appreciate the investment in youth that they represented, and clearly you're passing that along.
Yeah, that's a big passion for us in our business, is working with youth athletes and helping them reach their potential and avoid injury and that type of thing.
Yeah, kind of on that note, my introduction to fitness has been really through youth education. My background, I did a master's in youth development at the U, and so I was doing a lot of trip leading and after-school programs and doing different things around youth leadership, and saw what Max was doing and really just saw that, as we all know, sports are also a way to teach life skills and leadership skills. And that's a big part of where I was able to come in and I think influence our business and making it, yes, about this high-level scientific strength and conditioning program, but it's also, about more than that, and what we're bringing in terms of community and connection to kids, kind of learning about health and wellness and what they want to be doing, now, but also in 5-10 years.
How long have you two been married? Sorry, I go personal. I want to know about your lives.
Are we going on 7?
Yeah.
7 years.
So you've done this together.
Yes, but we've known each other since we were 14. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Which one of you has a connection to Minnesota? We were just chatting about that, the homing chip that we in Minnesota have. So which one of you has the homing chip?
Both.
Yeah. We both grew up here.
Yeah.
Nice. Where'd you go to high school?
We went to St. Paul Academy. That's where we met.
Of course, that makes sense.
Of course we did, and our daughter's in kindergarten there now.
Marvelous. That's a great story. Well, I'm so glad. I can't wait to hear more about you. And I want to hear from Julie, too. So Julie and I have known each other for many, many years. We've been around enough to say many, many years, kind of sadly, don't we?
We sure have.
So how did you get started on your own adventure, Julie?
Well, I was really fortunate. I kind of fell into commercial real estate. I actually was mentioning as we sit in the studio here that I started out as a radio announcer a long, long time ago, which was really fun. And then just through a series of life events, kind of in the mid-'80s, I'm giving a little bit of window into my age, I answered an ad in a paper like we used to do and ended up at a commercial real estate company. And from there, I just had continuing opportunities to grow in my career and spent, I would say, most of my career as a developer in real estate and had the opportunity to work for some really terrific companies. And really started my own company after 30 years in the business, so that was a little bit different. And I was coming off of some tenure in a Fortune 100 company, which is really a great learning ground for owning your own business, because you see the structure in a Fortune 100 company, and you can learn from that and make some application. But 5 years ago, I started my own commercial services company, and we do leasing and sales and development consulting and project management. And it's just, I'm fortunate because I fell into a business I really love.
And you do something you already know.
I do something I already know, but I'm learning every day.
So here's a question for all of you, really, which is this idea about if you're a plumber, you think you could run your own plumbing company, right? You are a fitness person, you think you can run your own fitness firm or a real estate person. There's a difference between being a technically expert person in a field and running a business. Definitely. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in that transition, all of you?
Yeah, I would say there's even, so when I came from Johnson Controls, and I ran a P&L at Johnson Controls of about $400 million. And there's even a difference in running a business in a company and running your own business, because all of a sudden some of the things that you kind of have as support already in place for you, you now have to do yourself. So, figuring out lines of credit and banking and HR and, all of those things that are kind of already in place for you in a company, even though you're running a business. So I find there's a lot to learn, and I really need other business people to be able to connect with and to learn from.
Yeah, well said, for sure. Yeah, I think, put as simply as possible, you are wearing all the hats all the time.
Especially when you're just getting started, right? And you don't have, cash flow for a lot of support staff. And, for us, it sounds like you were in the just business world for a long enough time that you had a good sense of the different moving parts in a business. That was something we totally just learned on the path along the way. Yeah. And we got into it as very much technicians, like you said, and we're doing most of that technical work ourselves. And then as we grew, we had to seek outside help to help us develop the different infrastructure that we needed, the operating systems and, the finance HR stuff. And I tried to read as many books as I could early on about how to make that transition from being a technician to being an actual business owner. And I think that was helpful, but definitely there's a lot of growing pains.
For sure. I think, we've basically, done a self-made MBA just from podcasts and books and conversations. But it's nice to be in this era where there are great podcasts out there and there are great resources and ways that you can really learn on the fly, and you have to just be, quick and willing to think you have a great idea one day and then totally pivot and switch gears the next day, and be very flexible with things.
I have found that it's lonely. And who do you get to complain about the boss to? I mean, seriously, right?
Over here.
That's right. What were some of the resources that you used to develop the non-technical expertise to run a company? What did you use?
Well, so a few years ago, we started doing EOS, which is, it's based on this book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And there's a lot of companies, sounds like Julie's got some experience with it too, in the Twin Cities here locally that use EOS. And EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it basically takes a look at, it looks at any business as having more in common than different, regardless of if you're in commercial real estate or fitness. You still have to have operations and finance and HR and marketing and sales. And so it gives you some really useful tools as far as how to navigate those different buckets and make sense of it all, which for us, I think, was a total lifeboat at a point where we had hit a ceiling with our business, and we had grown, but we didn't know how to take it to the next level, and we had just lost a key employee and stuff right when we started. So,
well, like really simple things like how to run a meeting the same way.
Right.
Whether it's with the whole company or with your leadership team, and what that structure looks like, and just those really, really tangible things. Yeah, Julie's nodding.
I'm nodding because we're also an EOS company, and when you're the size that we are, you can't implement every last thing, but it is a fabulous framework, and it's just been tried and true, and it's a great resource. The other that I found in just some stories is to really really think about what you can do and what you can't do. And I can remember when I started, having with QuickBooks, and I would sit on a Saturday and try and figure out, how to do QuickBooks. And I had like 5 accounting classes in college. And I remember at the time, my son, who was at Carlson, saying to me, "Oh my gosh, Mom," he goes, "you should really hire somebody to do that," he said. And so I did. And I think knowing, what things you really need to hire to have people do that are just not a good use of your time.
Right.
And then really surrounding yourself with resources. I'm in a mastermind group, and there are four of us, and really it's kind of a trusted environment to share, here's where I'm having trouble, or also maybe to hold you accountable for things. And as I was telling Bea earlier, the other thing that's been really helpful for me is I happen to be in the St. Paul Chamber Small Business Owners Roundtable. And that's another place where you can just say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or also get really support for your successes. So really having good resources has been great.
Have you done anything like that? Small group or?
Yeah, totally. And we use an EOS implementer so she really holds our feet to the fire. Shout out to her. Her name's Sue Hawks, and she's here locally. And she does a lot with women's business and women's leadership in business, and also, all types of business leaders. She's a great resource, and just had a book published last year that was really good and helpful if you're a business owner, I think. And then we also have a business partner that we started out with who has been really responsible with our bookkeeping and things that are key to your business running well, that weren't our technical expertise at all starting out. So that partnership has helped us weather the storms as well. And using EOS, and I'm just doing a peer group, just started doing a peer group as well, and just getting to sit with other people in a environment where you can really trust the other people around the table and share the things that you're struggling with or things that are going well. And just that conversation is really useful. I would say you can mine that for a lot of new ideas, even if the people are in totally different industries. It's amazing how the stuff crosses over.
And sometimes that's even more helpful to hear from a different industry.
Right.
I know.
An outside perspective, fresh eyes on something. Yeah.
I had a chance to, Chris Wright, who's the president of Minnesota United FC, is
Right.
on my board, and he is a marvelous human being, beyond gracious and humble, and so I have the good fortune of considering him a friend. He's a huge fan of Traction, and actually he introduced us to an EOS implementer who will be speaking to our membership in June about this very thing.
cool.
And I would say that, still being fairly new in my job, I feel like I'm in that place too about how are you organizing a small company in a way that's going to lead to long-term growth. And one of the challenges that I struggle with is pace. If it's just you can run at your own pace.
Yeah.
And if you talk really fast, if you think really fast, there's no one to be irritated by you because it's just you, right? But if you have a herd of people, a team of people,
Right.
and they all have their own, some of you are agreeing with that pace issue. So you've got to figure out how to blend your style, soften your style in a way that helps people feel invited into the conversation. Can you share stories about that from either one? I see a couple of agreements. So can you share some of your perspectives?
Well, I don't know if Jill and Max have done this as a part of Traction, but we took the Colby testing, which is really
We haven't done that
interesting.
yet, but-
So,
we've done StrengthsFinder and found that to be really helpful, and the Colby was another one that we would like to do.
yeah. So we did Strength
C-O-B-Y?
Finders too. Kolbe.
Colby.
And it really, and I probably know enough to be dangerous, but it really helps you understand the intuitive way that you like to work.
Right.
And it's just the knowledge of your other team members and how they work. And I'll give you an example. So I'm a very much a typical entrepreneur in that there's the kind of this first column that's fact finder. It's how much information do you need before you go.
Right.
And I need, if there's 20 things you need to know, tell me the top 3 and I'm gone.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
Right there
Well,
with
my team are high on the fact finder, and I have to have the most fabulous team, but they want all the facts first, and then they'll go. So, by example, if I'm going to go on vacation and I need to hand a project over to them, I need to slow down and take time and give them all 20 details, or they won't be as effective. On the flip side, if they're handing something off to me, if they give me more than 4, they know that I'll either start multitasking, my eyes will glaze over, I'll be distracted because I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't operate that way. So it was super valuable, and we also found out where we had gaps in our company. So one of the gaps that we have is we don't have anybody that just loves to create process. And so for our next hire, it'd be great to find somebody that
That's interesting.
likes process and can fill that gap for us.
Totally get that. How about you guys?
Well, I think we come from an interesting angle because not only are we entrepreneur partners, we're married.
We're going to explore that.
Yeah. So, Max is extremely typical entrepreneur mentality as well. He's, 2 miles ahead on to the next, and everybody, we're all kind of working to keep up. And so I think, we've had to do our own self-awareness practices as well around that. Yeah. I think we're still working on this one, to be totally transparent.
Well, I think it's the working on it that's the work.
Yeah.
Right? If there's, in fact, I just said this last night as I left work, I had the new opportunity to testify in front of the House Transportation Committee on the governor's bill around and focusing on transit. New experience for me. All of the wonderments that you have, I had, right? And so I'm leaving work, and I said to my public affairs director, I said, wow, I had a busy day, but I don't think I did anything.
Right.
And then I have to pause, and I reframed it, and I said, no, this is the work, right? If I'm having a series of meetings today such that I didn't get to my email or the list of tasks, this is the body of work for which I'm responsible, the meetings and the talking to people, right? And having to redefine what success looks like such that if the paperwork didn't get done, you still have to figure out a way to balance that value proposition. And I would think this is a part of it too. This is your work, figuring it out. It's not like you figure it out so then you can get started.
Right. Well,
Right.
and that brings up, I think, an interesting point, too, that the work's never done when you're at the top and it's your business. It's like, yeah, the email, there's always more. There's always more you could be doing. So knowing how to create some boundaries, and I think that's something that we've had a hard time with and we're getting better at because we're having to put work to it. You know, we have 2 young children, and it's so easy for us to just take whatever happened at work that day home and just continue talking about it all night long. And so, you know, trying to say, you know, this is the work, and when we also have to create a boundary, and the work's going to be there tomorrow.
How do you set a boundary? How did you do that?
We're working on it.
Yeah,
We're getting better at saying, okay, let's be done talking about work stuff at
Right.
this time, and then, you know, just not talk about it for the rest of the night and practice talking about other things,
Yeah.
which is
Like,
an actual practice.
It sounds super silly. Like, we have like cards on our table that are like question cards for the family, like
Right.
things that help draw us out of our own heads.
Those
and
table topics, you ever seen those?
yeah.
Yeah,
Like we do
absolutely.
things like that, and like, you know, keeping our phones off the dinner table, and simple little strategies that we just have to do. Otherwise, there's like
Yeah.
continuous spillover.
At the same time, though, I think that, you know, how you set the pace in your company. We have a good friend who's also a close business person to us, Jim Hines, who runs the Pipe Trade Services Union that we do a lot of work with. And he says there's something about the tone at the top that really trickles down into your business. And so I think, you know, while it can be problematic to set a grueling pace for everybody else to follow, I think not doing that is just as risky, right? So
Tone at the top. Marvelous. I think about that, the responsibility that you have as an entrepreneur to set the tone at the top.
Right.
It's something that my organization is spending a lot of time on, about culture and climate and the difference between the two.
Totally.
Now, how do you create a joyful organization even before maybe you can organize yourselves? You need to make sure how you're experiencing the company that feels a little organic, you know, a little alarming for the traditional business person that is my brain, but it tells people that the whole self is welcome here, that if it's a little messy, that's
Right.
okay. You know, the dogs are welcome, the kids are welcome. That's
Yes.
how life is, right? And if we can't be the most high paying boss, because entrepreneurs typically aren't going to be at the top of the pay scale, what you can do is add these extras, like tone at the top that says we're going to celebrate life in a way that's a
Right.
special value proposition, right? How have you done that?
Well, it makes me think back to EOS again. And even before we started EOS, what was really critical to us were our core values. And so our core values are integrity, transparency, and communication, and giving back, and excellence. I almost forgot for a second what our 4th core value was.
it's a headset.
Yeah, it's a headset. And so I think those are really important and foundational. And I think you're right, too, that one of the really fun things about being an entrepreneur is that you can offer what I think is more of a lifestyle and work-life balance. And when you're small, you really do kind of bring your whole self into it. And because, we are a smaller growing company, it's really important too, even, and I know that you guys are married, but it's really even, we found really helpful and important for us to bring our husbands into some of the things. And they've been really a tremendous support and a really good sounding board for us sometime as we look at challenges.
That's
But
cool.
I do think it's, that ability to just be more flexible and work-life balance that's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you two been intentional about that as well?
Definitely. I think that really actually defines our business
Yeah.
as a whole, and certainly our staff. It's very much, it feels like family amongst our staff. We're very involved. We do a lot of social interacting, time spent together. We do work out together. We do get meals together. We
Yeah.
spend time, we
And
hang
you
out
can
with
feel
each
it if
other's
that
kids
hasn't
and
happened
dogs.
recently enough that that we kind of need to create an opportunity for people to just let their guard down and spend some time together socially, because
Right.
our team, I think, really does care about one another, but in the day-to-day you don't really get a chance to actually connect and have some of those conversations that are not just related to the work stuff. So
it's important for just the work environment, but it's also important in our industry because
you have to walk the walk.
How
the
people
walk
show up with a client is very much bringing their whole self in a lot of ways. It's, training is a science, but it's also an art of connecting. And so, if people, whatever they're going through, it's of great importance to us that we're taking care of their health, from their physical health, their social health, their mental health, like all that really does matter,
right?
Because we care about them, but we know that they're going to show up as the best employee that they can be and have the most transformative sessions with the clients as well.
Right.
That's also just a big part of, our whole thing is around community. And I think if you come into our gyms, that's what I think sets us apart from, there's lots of places to work out in St. Paul and everywhere, right? But I think we feel unique because it's kind of that everybody knows your name feeling. We talk about one of our 3 uniques from EOS is being this idea of a third space. So, you have work and you have home, or school and home. And then what are those third spaces that you occupy, whether, historically it would be a community center or a church or kind of these, but it can be a gym. It could be a coffee shop. It can be, these other places where people find pockets of connection and community and places that they're working on their whole self as well. And so I think, we expect that you walk out the door having had a great workout, but that you also, feel more connected.
Yeah. Our staff will, if you have your headphones on in our gym, our staff will come and kind of poke you and give you a hard time about, the fact you're wearing headphones and not connecting with people and stuff. So it's definitely that third space moniker is something that we've really adopted and embraced since Jill brought that concept to us from wherever you found it.
Where was it from? Because I want to steal it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a thing. I think it was so. It's out there, and I think it's like a sociological concept. Yeah, third spaces.
Yeah,
fabulous. So I have a question for you from my own experience. I'd like your advice, your perspective on pace. We talked a little bit about it. How do you manage the pace of your growth such that you don't let your ideas get your, I see the company as kind of a strong unit, a nest, and a core, and the more you grow, the more, and it grow too fast, it can get stringy and risky, right? So for you specifically opening new stores, new gyms, how do you make sure that you're careful enough and thoughtful enough to protect your working capital and whatever it is that you need to do to grow thoughtfully?
Well, there's the risk side of it of, growing and taking on more overhead, which you just touched on, which, that's something that you need to be prepared for from just a resources standpoint, which I think one of the things we did is we didn't try to do that right out of the gate. And, I have a client who says, you have to figure out what's your pizza recipe before you start making a lot of pizzas. And then once you have your pizza recipe, then, your job is to make pizzas. So, it was over 5 years since it was 5 years from when we opened our first gym to when we went into our second one. So that gave us some time to kind of work on that pizza recipe. And then, another saying that we use and borrow, which comes from Sue's book, is putting your own oxygen mask on first. As a leader in the business and, somebody who is helping others pursue health and fitness goals, it's extremely important for us to lead by example. So, we encourage our staff to take their PTO and, do the things to make sure that they're filling up their own energy and inspiration, passion for what they do. And I think that helps to really preserve the quality, because in a service business, you have to make sure that the staff is really feeling good about what they're doing and that they're doing things at a sustainable pace. Even if sometimes we're not working at a sustainable pace and we're kind of running the the meter into the red, so to speak, it's important not to expect that from everyone.
Yeah, I think that is how we are able to grow sustainably, is keeping our staff healthy in whatever regard that means for them, because it's really them that we are going to rely on to be there doing the sessions and making the connections and the sales. So we have to have the right people on the team.
I'm feeling really convicted, Julie. Put your own oxygen mask on first. I'm not even looking at Haley, who's sitting in the listening booth here, about pace, about sustainable energy, about making sure.
She knows something about your
she
pace,
does.
maybe.
Setting healthy boundaries that you are demonstrating to your staff, that you respect your time and you get rest, and that you have it. It's one thing to have great ideas and an exciting opportunity. It's another. There are lots of great ideas. In my mind, the difference between a great idea and a great company is the sustainability of that great idea and the repeatability. And you do so by taking care of yourself and setting boundaries so that you get enough rest and enough exercise, and hence the feeling of a little bit of conviction. So, Julie, how do you manage boundaries and the sustainable pace that we're talking about?
Well, I think as it relates to growth and investment, that it is a challenge, and we're, finding our way and learning. So when do you bring on another new employee so that as your business grows, they're ready to go and you're not playing catch up? And I just think, honestly, we're still learning how to navigate that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is.
We are too.
When I think about the pace and example, I think of a couple things that I had the opportunity to have some executive coaching, which was really great. I was running a global account in 33 countries, and I had this fortunate employer that really gave me a great executive coach. And there were a couple of things that were so simple, but I think they helped with pace and setting example. One of them was to block time in my calendar to think. So I wasn't on this constant race of next thing to next thing, and it really does, that gets conveyed to employees that you're just constantly on the go. And this executive that I had a chance to kind of watch showed me that he literally blocked time, and it also gives you time to work on the business instead of in the business as well. And then the other thing that I have learned is not to send emails at night and the weekends. And so even if I feel like I need to be working to catch up or to do the emails, I hold them in draft form and then I send them on Monday morning. And it's just an example to my staff that, unless something's super critical,
Right.
you don't. And sometimes if I send one on the weekend, I might put in all caps, do not read this until Monday, just so they know.
Right.
But those are just simple little things, but they do make a difference.
Yeah, that's great. One thing I was going to add, I think the way that Max touched on, we didn't try to just grow from the very beginning. And also in the way that we have grown, we've done it in some ways too, where our St. Louis Park gym, we actually took over an existing gym, and it
was an acquisition as opposed to starting from scratch, which
Right.
was only something we could do because we had grown to a certain point with our first location, that we were, had the resources to do that. And that was a different strategy, which I think really has served us, because starting a gym from scratch like we did the first time, with the build out, and there's just so much that goes into it.
Well, right. And that first, we were there all day, every day, knowing every single person who walked in the door and their name
Right.
and their cat's name and everything. And we just we can't clone ourselves. We can't do that. So this was a great strategy for us to have another geographic foothold, and it was a very aligned community. And we got to take on some amazing staff that we, are
Right.
so delighted to have now. So that was a great kind of approach for us. And so, remembering that it doesn't have to always look a certain way.
Right.
And it's I think we're used to it always being like going the hardest, most uphill way sometimes. But, it's sometimes coming around and going a different route can be just as effective. And in Woodbury, too, this is a great strategic partnership that we are entering into with Summit Orthopedics and kind of taking over their fitness services piece. So it's like finding more outside the box strategies for growth has been a really good way for us to have more impact, increase more opportunities for our staff, have more, spread throughout the Twin Cities, but without spreading ourselves way too thin.
I'm sitting here thinking how very entrepreneurial you are.
All right, I have a challenging question for you. Entrepreneurs, as a group, have control issues. I'm just going to say it. And I'm joking and I'm smiling, but we all know it's true. We like things done. We like things done our way. We're entrepreneurial because, in part, we want to do things our way. Either I can improve upon this, or oh my gosh, if we run a gym, it would look like that. It would be so much cooler. Julie, oh my gosh, my boss is so crazy. I should be the boss. You know, I've thought the same thing. And then you're the boss. You're like, oh my goodness. Now you have to give up all control because the bigger you get, this person writes my speech. Ooh, I wouldn't have said that. But it's an okay way to say it, right? This person is scheduling my day and writing my calendar a certain way. I guess it's really okay to release control over how my calendar looks. Or bigger issues like a marketing strategy, especially if you don't know, but you think you have an opinion and it's an uninformed opinion, and you have to let go of the control of some of the details. How did your salesperson interact with that client? Might not have been you, but interestingly enough, that style might have been perfect for the client, and you can't control every piece of your company because by definition, your success is built on others. How is that working for you?
Seems like you speak from experience.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it.
Hitting on all those really fun points of the life of an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think for us, we accepted early on that we weren't going to have total control, and one of our goals with opening up our first location was to create opportunities for others. So to create career coaching opportunities, that's been a goal of our business from the very beginning. And so we kind of wrestled with that enough early on that, we made some strategic decisions before we opened. For example, I never had regular classes on the schedule that I taught at our first gym. It was always our other staff teaching, because if it was me doing it and getting the community going, it would be very difficult for me to extract myself from that when I needed to. So, it might have been slower, or, there's definitely lots of sessions that I watched that I wanted to have them go differently. But, we knew we had to do that in order to grow it and build the other people up and create those coaching opportunities for them.
I want to hear what Julie has to say, but just quickly to add to that, again, it goes back to those core values and the staff and the culture and the environment, because, I think if our coaches are, they're coming from that place of the core values and they've got that right intention in their hearts and minds, the outcome hopefully will convey that. So I think really trying to get that culture piece ingrained and people just so bought in. All in is one of our values. All in. So if you're all in, you're all in, and we know we're all.
We can work with that.
Yeah, we can work with that. As long as you're all in, we'll work with it.
Right.
I guess for me, I'd say it's a journey. I do really well for a while, and then I don't do so well. And I have to remind myself it doesn't need to be my way. And I just wrote a blog yesterday about working globally. And one of the big benefits of the diversity of global teams is that people do things differently. And so it's kind of like I have to remind myself. But Jill just mentioned outcomes. When I watch my team, and we have some similarities and some differences, but when I do see that they have a different way of approaching something or doing something, and then I watch how successful they are, it's just a reminder that, my way is not the only way. And in fact, I can learn from them how to do some things differently. But I do every once in a while, I have to catch myself or, just really say, okay, stop. It doesn't have to be exactly the way you think it does.
Yeah. Well, and I think for us, at least, or I can speak for myself, I feel like I know how much I don't know because you're coming with 30 years in your industry, and we've sort of been building the ship building the plane as we're flying it kind of thing. So I am fully aware that there are people out there with more expertise, and I am hungry and open to it. So I've tried to, and at the same time, on the flip side, trying to also trust that this is our business. I do. At the end of the day, we're going to care always the most.
Right. I have two thoughts on this because this is very personal to me as well. I feel like I'm in the same boat with you guys in a couple of ways. And I've sought a lot of advice, so I have hunted down mentors. Mm-hmm. I am relentless. If I have decided I want you to be my friend or my mentor, I will hunt you down until you submit. And I've done that with a couple of people because they're brilliant, amazing, talented, lovely people, and wise, certainly beyond my years. So, and one of my mentors has said to me, your job to run an organization is to gather resources, and you delegate everything else, right? Which has to require me to release my control freak tendencies around the details, right? Which has been work on rather than in the business, like you were mentioning, Julie. So that's been really helpful for me to keep my eye on. And then I have to confess that I really don't do all the work. If I'm delegating everything, that means our success is based on the talent of others.
Yeah.
Who's doing the work. And the second thing I thought is really impactful because you talked about process and systems. I am a real systems person. I have a strong personality, and I think that if you build an organization around your personality, that's a problem. It's not sustainable. Again, back to that word. It's not something that will continue beyond you if you make the company about you or you build it around you. If you can figure out, so we spend a lot of time figuring out. And I'm from the military, okay? So and when I was in the military, one of my jobs as a young officer was to create the security plan for the team, whatever size team it was in the moment. And one of the training exercises is you remove the commander. So you're in the field for a week, you're doing maneuvers, you're handling, if something were to come from this angle or something were to come from that angle, and then you remove the leader. The question is, how does your unit perform? Right. How well have you established systems and processes and replicable,
decentralized command.
Right. Yeah. In a way that still allows the chain of command of, respect and following rules. And yet each of you is your own leader of your own area of operations. So my team has to learn all of these military terms and they roll their eyes. Yeah. We're talking about, here's your area of operations. Oh my goodness. But that's really helpful to remember, again, that it's not about your driving personality as an entrepreneur. And you tend to have charming personalities when you're an entrepreneur. It seems to come one with the other. You all are demonstrating that. What are some lessons that you've learned or mentors you've had who've taught you something about how to think about a company?
Well, a couple things just to build off what you just were describing from your experience and how your experience in the military has helped you as an entrepreneur and business owner and leader in your company. One of the things I'm trying to work on right now is thinking about how to leverage my employees' strengths and focus on their strengths more than trying to fix their weaknesses.
That's brilliant.
And I think that's been powerful for me just in terms of even how I have conversations with people. I was, doing some reading and listening to some audiobooks and things that were talking about, how difficult it is for people to fix things that they're just, they're not naturally good at certain things. And you're going to be more successful trying to leverage those strengths and build those things up. And then, the other things that you described is, your job is to gather resources. And one of the things with EOS is there's a tool called Delegate and Elevate where, you're supposed to, on a quarterly basis, basically evaluate all the things that you're doing, where you're putting your time, and then look at what things fill you up, what things are necessary, what things are really draining your energy, and what things can you give away. And doing that exercise really forces you to think about what's your highest and best use, which I think as an entrepreneur, that changes constantly. Like the highest and best use for the leader of the company, and it's probably true for everybody else in the company too, is going to change and evolve. And in order to actually figure out what that is at a given moment, there has to be self-reflection, which goes back to what Julie was talking about with taking that time to think, so you're not just running, and all of a sudden you realize you've run off 40 miles in the wrong direction. That could be potentially a very negative thing for everyone if you're not, leading people in the right way. So those are a couple things that I'm thinking about. And then as far as the mentors, we mentioned that we have a business partner who his business is real estate, which is totally different than fitness, but he's really mentored us in, like I mentioned, the bookkeeping and finance side, and that's been really helpful. And then I've had a lot of mentors within the fitness world who have helped me see things ahead of kind of where they are in the industry and how to apply things that are new and novel within our company, how to run a successful business. I'm not sure if you're interested in who those people are, but yeah, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of great mentors. There's a guy named Brian McKenzie who I would view as a mentor in many ways. My college soccer coach, Dan Couchman, has been a mentor to me.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate that just in the Twin Cities community, we've been lucky enough to have a lot of clients that are leaders in their own businesses and in the business community, or in different industries, whether they be physicians or bankers, or and they've taken us under their wings. And I think we've gravitated towards these people like you're talking about too, and they've been super generous with their insights and wisdom, and we've tried to soak it all up. Extremely generous. So I think that's something that we've continued to just benefit from over the past 8 years. It's just the generosity of people about, 15, 20 years ahead of us in their careers. Right. And they're just in that place where they can see where we're at. And I think they've kept us inspired and motivated, and probably and always helped us guide through the challenges.
Thinking creatively about difficult problems.
Yeah, and especially stuff like HR, which we were so, when we started, it was like Max and me and one other employee, and then we had one other coach, and now we're at 30 employees. And for us, like, the managing of people has been one of the biggest shifts. And so going through kind of those people, the HR stuff has been, mentors are huge, because it feels so personal to us sometimes, especially, the flip side of your employees being like family is that it can be very intense sometimes. And so I think we've gotten that good outside perspective and kept things moving forward in a healthy way due to mentors.
That's marvelous. How about you, Julie? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think mentors are key, and I think my mastermind group is a group of mentors, so that's been great. I would say too, another thing that's been really fabulous for us, and we've appreciated it, is that we are still in a pretty male-dominated industry in commercial real estate, and the fact that we're a women-owned company is a little bit unique, and definitely. I would say that we really have valued the women who have supported us, and even women who are competitors in the business and have said, we want you to be successful. And not that there aren't men, not that the men don't want us to be successful, but in particular, women have reached out and said, if you don't know something, if you need something, just give us a call. We want to help you. So that's been really huge for us. But awesome. As I'm looking at B, I do want to say that removed the commander. I love it. It just gave me, I guess, an excuse to take like a month-long vacation. Yeah.
We're leaving town tomorrow.
I love it.
Remove the commander.
That is brilliant.
Well, on that note, one final word of advice. So this has been marvelous. I can't tell you how fascinating it is, and I know there will be people who will listen to this one with real interest. They're going to take some things away. So think about that next entrepreneur who's listening today, who maybe has started and is struggling, or is pondering, could I possibly actually do something like this? One piece of advice for that person.
I guess I can jump in because I had an idea while my wife was talking about all the wonderful people who have helped us along the way. Many of those people have been our clients. And I would say, as a new entrepreneur, don't look too far down the road. focus on just creating a few raving fans right out of the gate. And those people will really help you kind of see what's the next opportunity. So I think that's something for us that really helped us get started, was really just focusing on the people in front of us. And still to this day, that's a big focus for us. But yeah, I think that's something to be at the front of your mind if you're just starting out. It's just, how do you create a few raving fans with your business, whether it's commercial real estate or fitness or something else.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I like that.
How about you, Jill?
Okay. One piece of advice. I do think if you have the resources or the time, it's tough depending on if you're doing it alone, if you can have a partner with you. But the things like the EOS tools or whatever model you want to use, nailing down what are your core values, what does make you unique, creating that business identity that you can kind of wear like a jacket or a badge of honor, I think is really nice, because it is a guiding light when you're going out. And because I think there's a lot of shiny objects at the beginning because you just want to be successful. So you will follow whatever
anything that looks like opportunity.
Right. But sometimes that can be distracting. And so having that identity and those core values, and kind of, not that you shouldn't be flexible with that, or at least the direction, but that is helpful for staying focused at the beginning, especially.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think, knowing who you are and what your goals are is really important too. I mean, we were never trying to grow a company really quickly so that we could sell it or something like that. It was always going to be more of a lifestyle business for us and our family business. And so, I think depending on what type of company you're trying to create, it looks totally different.
It's hard to pick one, and I would say that and this maybe is just so obvious, but pick a service or a product that you really love. And then I think your zeal and your passion are really authentic. And then when the times get rough, it makes it a little bit easier because, you love what you're doing and you can kind of enjoy the adventure. And I think of, you guys with your backgrounds, I mean, you ended up in a business that was an extension of who you are.
Totally.
And so I think that's really helpful.
That's marvelous. Well, thank you three. And thank you to everyone for tuning into Bee's Table Talk. Go to stpaulchamber.com/podcasts to listen to more episodes featuring interviews like this one. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.